I failed to make a discussion about the Nepal situation. I decided not to upload it because I think some of the things I brought up there were a bit controversial and a bit on sort of bordering the lawful side, I think, and I decided not to because it just seems like it wasn't going to go anywhere. I was just reporting on the fact that how people overthrew the government in Nepal was genius. I think it was definitely warranted as well because of obviously killing innocent children. Like fucking hell, I don't know why people can't do that in other countries like which have done similar things. But yeah, but I wanted to talk about something else. I want to talk about basically the qualities I'd want to see in a leader, and it typically involves like caring about people, which is a common theme. And I'll talk about how I would run a country first. And people no doubt might have issues with it, or might find it controversial, but I think it's important because a lot of people would claim to know how to run a country and not really expand on it. Instead, it typically comes along the lines of, oh, we'll deport immigrants, we'll strip rights away from LGBTQ plus and woke people. But that's not good because fundamentally society needs these things to run, to actually work, as they always have. Like, there's never been an issue, and it's just people making it out to be an issue. That's the issue. So there's no actual evidence, there's no line of reasoning, and that's sort of the problem there. I think the first thing I'd do is obviously establish that if I do a terrible job, I'd actually want to be held accountable, want to be held responsible for inaction and causing harm to people. Like legit, I would call upon an emergency vote if that was a thing. And then like the first year or two, I was still doing nothing. Yeah, people have every right to call me out and get me out, essentially. Because that's a basic right. That's how democracy works. It should work. Unfortunately, it's not true for some countries out there. And I think the second thing, it's hard to really order the rest of us now. Now I've laid down that foundation. Yeah, like, second thing I guess would be to put in place a board of people. This way it addresses the rest of the issues with relative ease. So the first thing I'll do is probably strengthen the amount of professionals we have and obviously enforce a law that doesn't allow corruption, where it's actually bannable and I think deserves prison time. Like, I'd consider it life in prison. That amount of corruption because it's so fucking stupid. We shouldn't be having people buying off government bodies, let alone professionals, just because they want some more fucking money. It's so wrong in so many ways, and this breaches everyone's rights, not just the 99% of people, but even some 1%. It's just so fucking stupid. So I'd want something like that in place. I'll say it needs to go through nuances and stuff on the actual law firms and economics as well. There's no doubt saying about that there. But yeah, the idea is safer boards, safer people. It's really simple. And that would address the issues that people might have with, again, lobbying and boards and stuff. Nobody can be bought for human, and that's the basic rule here. I'd say the thing after that would be discussions. I think you need to discuss with said board, like professionals across every field, like astronomy maybe, and obviously health. Like I think physical health and mental health. I think two different areas which need addressing itself. Even like immigration stuff, or economics as well. Like, let's not forget, it's a really important one, especially for addressing working class, middle class, and ideally we shouldn't have high costs because the fact that's dystopian. But people should be able to buy houses and not have to go through an organisation, let alone to rent houses. So, and there'd also be things like in that sort of niche bit, like new laws about jacking up the prices just after buying something like that. Like it's just ridiculous. Really, the prices should be equal to the amount of land there is. And also, if it's a family as well, like families should take priority into getting houses. And flats should be reserved for people who are not in families, like just single or relationships or open relationships. And also, one of the things that's important to me personally, I think for like flats and stuff, or maybe repurposing hotels for it. You'd also need to make sure it's up to date, up to standard. So proper walls, so there's no sound leakage, which is a big problem I have with current buildings. There'd be, I don't know if there'd be furniture. I don't know if we could cover that cost exactly with like the GDP. It definitely needs to be up to date and technologically there. Like even like plug sockets that include fucking USB-C and USB ports because people might use them and they might be handy in the long run. So that's sort of important there. And make sure there's no mould, making sure families are safe. There's different regulations and niches in that area. But again, like a board, there needs to be other things. There needs to be some military experts so we can bolster defences and offences if push comes to shove, or shove comes to push. God, I've had a conundrum. Anyway, but you also need to address many other different areas which I've not even considered, but they exist. Quality is something I'd probably invest money in. Pay a professional to a decent wage to decide that, oh, this is what needs to happen for human rights. And avoiding my own personal bias myself, being autistic and learning difficulties and LGBT+, I'd look at the evidence first and decide from there. That way people think, oh, it's actually not biased. But believe it or not, to add on to equality, I'd also have experts in religion. So establishing religious rights is important. And yeah, like there's again many different areas, and it's hard to say all of them. But that's the sort of idea that I have. It's like getting professionals on board, on an actual board, to determine how to run the country. So it's not just me deciding it, it's just group and discussing things, and like even then we could sort of interconnect as well. I don't know how far someone could go, but like for example, human rights can go with mental health and physical health to an extent. Physical health and mental health, because they're linked. Mental health can go with military as well. Like there's different connections here. And that's the issue with the systems that we currently have, where that isn't actually what's happening. You have one body deciding everything for some of these things, and it just doesn't help. It's sort of why we need experts on this. We're not looking for people who've got tons of money, we're just looking for people who know what they're doing, know what they're talking about, and can convince other people, myself and the rest of the board, of that same thing. It could be like a joint vote thing. If the military person is like being a complete dick, then yeah, like they should fire him, find someone new, because it's not warranted, it's not helping, and it's not going to do anything for the country. You might have military expertise, but you're not going to do that by essentially bringing people down. Let's say there's a vote to provide better mental health care to soldiers, for example, or ex-military or veterans. You literally need to all agree on that, and if the military for some reason doesn't, that's a problem. So I think there's cases where, yeah, even though the vote would win anyway, just by majority, the fact someone's denying that sort of thing needs to question the authenticity and intent of being there. So yeah, again, it's really niche, and probably stop talking about it because it's been really long. Um, the other thing is, I wouldn't profit, and this is like a personal thing. Only get the bare minimum. I might even, again, like use what I'm paid to help family, but I'd also use any excess to help the communities. And not only that, I'd also make sure that I'm in a living situation where I'm not actually compromised, but I'm actually integrated in the community, so I get an understanding. And I'm not necessarily going to go to a house with bodyguards somewhere, a mansion. I just want a normal house, or even a bungalow would do, for fuck's sake. It's like detached from everyone else, but in a reasonable neighbourhood, one that's nice, and one where I can interact with the community and different cultures and stuff. So like, London would be a terrible choice for me, in my opinion. But, somewhere nice, I don't know, like Bristol comes to mind. That'd be great. I wouldn't mind that. Bristol seems like a nice place to live, other than the weather warnings. It does scare me a bit. So maybe somewhere a bit outwards. I don't know. A bit more inward actually. That'd be better. That's the sort of thing I mean, like integrating society, go undercover and stuff. I might have to wear glasses and masks and stuff, and maybe speak differently, like get a speech therapist to help me with that. But yeah, like that's the thing, like act human, be human, like become human, essentially. Because one of the problems I see with various governments and prime ministers is like you're not actually going out into communities and hearing people out. Like if I go to a restaurant, for example, if I'm prime minister and I go to my favourite restaurant, all the things I do, like vegan food, to be honest. Also, we'll address that as well in a way that everyone can be happy. But if I go to a restaurant, I'm there alone or maybe with someone else, I don't know, and I overhear someone on the other table talking, I'll be like, oh, okay, I'm listening, I'll eavesdrop, sure, but I'll listen. I say, like, oh, there's a problem in our fucking church or something, I don't know. I'd address that if there's like a fundamental issue, like, for example, I think if there's any case of like, I don't know, like going into the weird territory of creepy pastors and stuff. Creepy pastors. What the hell? Why did that come to mind? Anyway, creepy pastors, priests, whoever. I'd enforce a law that's like you have to have CCTV in every single room of a church, basically, so that you can make sure these people aren't committing really horrible offences, at least in the church itself. And the other thing, I guess, is like by law there should be one adult accompanying, like one adult per whatever, so children, like that sort of thing, in a church setting where there are actually higher rates of these issues. So it's like listening to people and finding a solution. Obviously, I'll consult with someone on this and just say that, but yeah, like, it wouldn't be my opinion that leads it, it'd be a joint decision. And this is what I mean. Like, it's what true leadership is. It's like leading your country to happiness and better living standards, whilst people who say aren't doing that at the moment end up fucking up their own country. Look at what Nepal did. They took greed too far and they ended up paying the ultimate cost for it. They lost their seat and they got a new government in place. What the UN said about it was stupid, I think. Not needed to intervene, but there's nothing really to intervene with. They've took control of their country. They've done the right thing. They've fought against corruption, which as the UN, you should be against as well. But if you're not, then that makes me question what you're doing. I'd want to stay on good relations with something like the UN myself as a leader. I don't know how it actually works, so it's probably like someone else that goes there in my place, but still the idea. I want good relations still, and I'd try to enforce change there as well. Like become an influence, lead by example. And also like being younger as well. I'd want to give the idea that younger people can run a country the way that it should be. It doesn't have to be older people. It's just where I take a lot of issue. Like, can I address the issues, and also like even like a recent thing like the immigration problem in the UK supposedly. Again, I'll consult with the people relevant to this situation and address it publicly as well. If people come out saying like I don't know, I said like immigration isn't a problem here because it makes up the 1% of the population, and the crime makes up only like 0.0%, then that's what the evidence says, and I'll say that. But people have to learn that I will not take bigotry as an answer, and that's simply how it works. Like bigotry as an answer just makes no fucking sense. And I'd call it out as well. But if people still don't agree, then yeah, like again, this sort of turns into the you can vote against me sort of thing. Feel free. That's an option. I'd still hope that the board stays in place if I was gone. That's the important thing here. Again, it should be up to a joint decision, not one person. I know the Parliament does that, but even then I find Parliament could be pretty ineffective as well, especially given the diversity of sort of seats and stuff. And what I've seen from that as well is like it's just a bunch of fucking gibberish all the time. Like you got Keir Starmer saying that caring about something like Palestine is student politics. That's how fucking dystopian it is and how corrupt he is as a person. It goes to show, and apparently he's a human rights lawyer. Are you fucking kidding me? Didn't he try to take away like trans healthcare? A human rights lawyer? The fucker should call himself a human wrongs lawyer then. They're so corrupt and so fucking scummy. And then that's the audacity to call it student politics. So what the fuck does that even mean? I guess you can't define it though. That's just crazy. I just wouldn't address things like that unprofessionally. If a fucking Conservative MP came out to me saying like, oh, you wanted to push for tax on meat, for example. Like, what's the reasoning behind this? Everyone loves meat. Nobody wants to give it up. The reason is simple. It's for the good of the people and the planet. It's nothing to do with the taste. We can phase out the option of meat over time. This way it gives farmers a chance to convert, and it gives people their planet. It keeps it safe. It keeps them safe, because the obesity pandemic is linked to meat. There's many different things here, and I wouldn't be addressing it like saying, oh, it's just a bunch of bullshit you're saying. No, it would actually be backed with evidence. Have a reason for everything, and instead of jumping around the question, moving the goalposts, I'd address it head on, even like something uncomfortable, like, for example, if I had done something bad in my past and someone was confronting me on that, like immaturely, admittedly, because it's fucking past, I would address that. I'd say like, yeah, I did something wrong, and here's why it's wrong. If people can't respect me after that, it's unfortunately their problem. But I'm doing my best, I admit to it, I've corrected where I've gone wrong. So, again, these sort of questions just don't make sense, and they also don't make for good leaders, let alone members. That's again why I have so many issues with leadership in various countries. Um, yeah, like, it's really important to address these in a way that benefits people, not just the governments and what they think should happen. It's just benefiting people. As I said, it's like getting away from bias. So if there's something that goes against, say, gay rights, which is objectively proven, again, hypothetically, if it's objectively proven, getting rid of them is beneficial to, say, children, then yeah, you could argue that there is a place for that, but even then it requires like proper sort of analysis and investigation, because you need to make sure it's legit. You need to make sure that if you enforce it, it's going to enforce the right thing, so you can't necessarily get rid of the basic right of being gay. But you can treat it like something, again, hypothetically, if it's something like, they could treat it like paedophilia, which you can get treatments for. And it could be the same with gay people, if there is evidence for it. Yeah, it could just be like normal therapy rather than the horrific conversion therapy shit. Again, that's a hypothetical, so again, then go bias and looking at the evidence, getting people involved to talk about it. I think I've pretty much said everything that I can say about it. Again, I think these are really important points to me and really key values I have. Again, if I was to ever become Prime Minister, it'd be like, wouldn't necessarily be a dream come true, but it'd be like a relief, because finally I could do something that's not motivated by corruption, by money. And yeah, I could actually address things as they come. And you know, I'd also be in touch with reality as well. I wouldn't be just sitting there in the office doing nothing but signing papers and stuff. I'd actually want to be alongside everyone else. I'd be going on TikTok or something, or going on YouTube, something like that, or not necessarily X, but Blue Sky. Like these various different platforms where I can interact with not only people but stay in touch with reality. Again, seeming more human, unlike a lot of leaders today. You know, it'd be one of those things where I could even crack a few jokes being in leadership. And also, that's the other thing, I forgot this fifth thing. I was going to talk about, I think I said 5 things. Not being formal. And I think this is important because everything follows a status quo and it's just so fucking boring and unnecessary. Now when I see a president go on stage, I'm like, Jesus, do you have to wear this expensive suit? Do you really have to? I'm just sitting there thinking like, I just want to wear my favourite band t-shirt. And some, currently I'm converting to chino trousers, but I used to wear jeans. I wear my chinos and some trousers and some trainers I won't come formally. I might make myself look nice, but that's it. I don't want to wear a suit, because I'm not a fucking suit. I'm a person. I'm just like everyone else. Yeah, I guess the core value, what I could call it, core belief, I guess, is that we're all human. We represent humanity. And that's what I want to see in a leader. It's really simple. It's not so much about equality, it's about valuing everyone as people. It's not a left-leaning or right-leaning situation. Again, it's just about people. And yeah, that to me symbolises a true leader. So I think this is probably one of the best sort of discussions I made. Sorry I didn't use the camera. I was going to do audio camera, but I forgot. Just waiting for a server. Yeah, that's what I consider a true leader to be. So, thanks for listening. And if anyone has any agreements or disagreements, let me know. But I'm very interested in this sort of topic, like what's the perfect leadership? Because I'm not doing anything that's demolishing current things that are in place. Like I'm not demolishing democracy or turning the place into a dictatorship. I'm not presenting myself as the one true leader. I'm presenting myself as a human being who cares about other human beings. Like it's not a fellow kids sort of situation, which no doubt can happen. It's not definitely a robotic or soup situation or corpo. So yeah, and let me know what you think. So thanks for listening. See everyone another time.